different conversations that revolve around like fantasy intervention and business like related stuff outside of like our group chats and stuff. So I'm looking into multiple different angles as to where we can actually blow up throughout this offseason. I'm like really excited about a couple different opportunities, but there's one that I've been thinking about doing. And I was like, man, that sounds like a nightmare to set up and everything. And I decided to just go ahead and start it this morning, and it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Now it's still just the skeleton of it, but it's right there. Like it's way easier than I thought it was going to be. Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this show off. You guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
What's going on, guys? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. Get excited. We might actually have some surprise guests on because instead of me actually sending the link to the YouTube page and to the Twitter page, I actually just sent the link to group pages. So nice. Like for the actual podcast itself. So maybe we'll have somebody pop in. That was not intentional. But
come one, come all. All are welcome.
Hell yeah.
Oh man, am I still lagging? I need to just
it'll make a really interesting show, wouldn't you think?
It could be. It absolutely could be. And yes, this is the Waiver Wire show. However, we are going to put a little twist in the show, guys. This is something as to where we want to explore some of the waivers that are going on and whatnot, some pickups of the week. But with it being week 17, we thought that would be kind of pointless. We thought it'd be kind of stupid, to be honest with you. So we decided that we were going to turn this one into a little bit of a waiver wire show for real life NFL situations. We're still going to cover the waivers for week 17 and make sure that we do hit all those. But overall, we want to look at some of the free agents and where they could end up in 2021 moving forward, and if that situation is actually valid. But I do want to bring up the fact that we do want to cover these waiver wires just in case you have a week 17. So we're going to go ahead and fly through this. It's not going to be a big discussion. We're not going to sit there and go back and forth. It's going to be just a quick overview of who Chef thinks the waiver wire pickups of the week are going to be.
Nice. I don't get beat up this week. I'm so happy about that.
Maybe still a little, but just
maybe a little bit. Yeah, there's some hopes and dream dart throws on here, but yeah, let's get right into it, man. And if you don't mind, I'll kick it off, Jace, with the quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, 45.6% ownership. Now, Kirk's been on our list before and hasn't let us down when he has been. He's facing the Lions this week, who have allowed 40 total touchdowns to the quarterback position this year and are dead last in fantasy points allowed with 23 fantasy points per game. I think if you're a Goff owner and somehow you're in week 17, I think Cousins could be a viable fill-in for you.
I don't have any argument with that. Like, nope. It's something that's where he keeps performing, he keeps showing out. Let's go ahead and roll it, man. It's a good pickup.
Next one on the list is Derek Carr, 41.3% ownership. Now, the Raiders reaffirm that Carr is the starting quarterback in week 17, and he's going up against Denver, 22nd ranked defense versus the quarterback. Carr should be able to put up modest numbers if your starter is resting or out due to injury. So those two guys for the quarterback position are my picks this week off of the waiver wire, under 50% ownership, and could be available to help you win your championship.
Okay. Once again, I can't really disagree with that one. Up against Denver, it should be a good situation. They struggled, or they ended up doing pretty well up against the Chargers this past week, but I have no disagreement with that.
Yeah, me either. Denver's defense, as a Broncos fan, is just sad.
Sorry, Nate.
It's okay. You're not. You're picking on the Broncos, man.
Picking on the facts, man. Picking on the facts.
I did not build that team.
And that's a perfect segue to get into the running backs. Gus Edwards. Facts are facts, and he has the snap share going in his favor. Equal snap share to Dobbins. He's only 32.1% owned in leagues, and he's getting an honest workload.
Yeah, his efficiency is like just blowing my mind to an extent, man. Like I can't get a hold of when he's going to go off, when he's not. So he's actually kind of risky for me, but it's up against Cincinnati. You can't not, go out and grab Gus Edwards. I don't know how he's still not rostered. Maybe just because people stop playing at this point. But if you're in a fantasy championship and you're trying to cockblock, the other team, like if they had a James Robinson, like I did this past week, it's something where you can keep people from getting Gus Edwards and potentially having a big time week for that week 17 performance.
I mean, would you rather go with a Cam Akers or the next guy we're going to talk about in Malcolm Brown? I would trust Gus Edwards over both of them because you don't know who's going to get the carries. At least you know that Gus Edwards has a solid floor.
Yeah, I do like that. I like that.
Yeah, fair point.
I'm on board.
But moving on with Malcolm Brown, 26% ownership. This is where things get a little dicey. We know Henderson will most likely miss week 17, and Cam Akers is due to return, but he's coming off a high ankle sprain. So how much of a workload will Brown get is the big question, with the Rams needing to win this game versus Arizona and Jared Goff already considered out for week 17. They are going to have to run the ball, and it could get messy. And Malcolm Brown, I guess if you're in a pinch, he could be somebody that pushes you over the edge, but it's really dicey for me.
Yeah, that is a dicey one.
Yeah, what's the deal with Henderson now? Henderson's injured, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Henderson will most likely be out. I believe he had some sort of injury this week. Not exactly sure on what it was, but I know he's out.
It's dicey, but I don't hate it. I mean, it's not a terrible take overall. What else do you have?
LaMichael Pirine, 8.8% ownership. With Frank Gore being out, it's most likely going to be Pirine who gets the bulk of the carries against the Patriots. Now, some may say an even split with Ty Johnson could be in order, but I think they keep Johnson tied into the third down role and let the bigger back in Pirine, I think he's over 200 pounds, gets the lion's share of the carries, similar to what the Bills did with Moss and Singletary up against the Patriots.
Yeah, once again, good to go.
Yeah,
I'll take it. The running backs are a lot better this week than they were last week, to be honest with you. Like, it's a whole night and day difference. Like last week, it was like, man, I don't know about this. This week, it's like, dude, I can't even argue with that. Like, it's a solid statement. And guys, keep it tuned. By the way, we are going over waiver wires, trying to fly through those because we actually want to discuss some of the free agents coming up in 2021 and what spot they're going to land in. So that's kind of why we're flying through this a little bit more than normal. But go ahead, Chef. Who's your next person?
And my last guy to finish up the running backs, Darrell Williams out of Kansas City, only 2.6% ownership. Word came out early Monday that the Chiefs starters would be rested for week 17. CEH was already out in week 16 dealing with an injury, and Bell only saw 31% of the snap share compared to Williams at 69%. I believe they have Williams carry the bulk of the workload again this week against the Chargers and save their studs for the playoffs.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right, let's roll it through. Let's keep this going.
Wide receivers, Sterling Shepard, 51.6% ownership. He may not be available, but Shepard was on our list last week, so if you listen to us, no wonder why he wouldn't be available. And if you needed him as a fill-in, he didn't let you down. It's pretty safe to say that he's a viable flex play this week against the Cowboys, especially if Golden Tate is out again.
Okay. Then you got Kiki Kuti over there.
Yeah, 36.2% ownership. He isn't the fantasy stud that everyone hoped that he would be after his first matchup against Indy, where he finished with 22.1 fantasy points, but he has an average of 14.2 fantasy points over his last 4 games and gets a pretty good matchup versus Tennessee this week. The Titans, 29th versus fantasy wide receivers, so he is a viable play.
And I actually like him a lot for DFS as well.
Yeah.
They're kind of disappointed to an extent, but I love him for DFS. Now, pick one other person real quick that you really love on this list, and then let everybody know where they can find the list. And let's go ahead and hop into this show.
Oh, my favorite. Oh, man. The one I can get behind the most, I would want to say, is Nelson Aguilar. So he's 42.6% ownership. He's been on our list for weeks. Why he is still available, who knows? Aguilar now has 43 receptions, 846 yards, and 8 touchdowns on the year, coming off of his biggest week in his career. It's clear he has a true chemistry with Carr and could post similar numbers to secure his job next year, which kind of segues into what we're going to do next. But for all of the other waiver wire ads, go on thetiltisreal.com. You can check out the website there. Also on our Twitter page at thetiltisreal on Twitter.
Yo, what's going on?
What's up?
Facebook user. Why did it switch this default brand stuff for me again? Jeez. Let's see. We're going to do
What's
Bubble.
going on?
How does Bubble look, right? Bubble looks cool.
That looks cool. That's something new.
Yeah, it's brand new. StreamYard just put this all together. That's the platform we're using. So anyways, guys, we are about to dive in, right? Dive into some of these free agents for 2021, where they could end up, who could actually be successful in their roles. And, it's something as to where there are a lot of free agents that could potentially, change teams, but not all of them are going to. So which free agents at each position are we actually looking to attack and try and acquire, especially in dynasty leagues and whatnot, before they end up, I guess, in either a better situation or just stay in the situation that they are in? Let's get that kicked off. But before we do, a quick word from our sponsors that actually allow us to do this show.
Come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this season. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy show app for player props. They've eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top tier athletes. Choose 10 out of the 20 player props for the NFL options to build your lineup. Use promo code CIRCLE when you sign up today, and you will receive an instant match bonus up to $50 on your first deposit of 20 or more. For those of you who struggle at math, that would mean if you deposit 20, you will get 40, 30 gives you 60, 40 gives you 80, all the way up to that $50, $100 bonus. Again, use promo code CIRCLE to get that bonus. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store today or Play Store, or by visiting their website, www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up and hashtag prop up today.
God, Mike kills that every time, man. He does such a good job, right?
Beautiful voice.
It is. It's like a voice of the Angels,
Yeah.
Oh, man. The only one that I know is better is Juan's warning voice, right? Warning.
Yeah.
That video is amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of these free agents, the places that they have an opportunity to land. We have them ranked 1 through 5 for each one of us. So let's go ahead and start out with you, Nate. Who is your number 1 overall free agent for the quarterback position?
So it's Dak Prescott. Obviously, he's the best quarterback going into free agency. I can't imagine Dallas won't re-sign him. But also, I mean, how frustrated do we think he is with the situation where he didn't get a contract? Do we think Dak looks to leave?
So I'm not sitting there saying like Dak is going to leave like 100%, but it's still, the question can't just stop there. Jerry Jones is saying like he's our quarterback, whatever the case is. But Dak's going to have to accept a little bit less money than what he was originally going to take because of the injury.
Right.
Like he's not going to walk in there and be like, oh, I want my 40 million, give my 40 million, and him just, get it. So Dak is going to have to take a step back, or he's going to have to try and test that market. Now, they could end up tagging him again. It could be a whole Kirk Cousins situation.
Right.
If that happens, it's going to get ugly. But that's why I kind of like the idea of Dak Prescott, sitting there and looking at an opportunity to go to, Denver through a sign and trade type deal.
Right.
Now, it would cost Denver 2 first-round picks, but it could end up working with the franchise tag as long as Dak actually, agrees to that. So I do think it's possible that he moves teams, but 99% chance. He's my quarterback 1, by the way, as well as he yours, Chef.
Right. Yeah. Consensus with that. Yes.
Yeah. So there's 99% chance he ends up back in Dallas, but it is nice to explore that possibility. Now, who's your quarterback 2, Nate?
So my second one, Andy Dalton, obviously right behind Dak Prescott.
Ooh.
Right. So I think my thing with Andy is that he's looked serviceable. Like he is what we thought he was, but he's good enough. So for like a team I could see him going to New England. I could see him going to Indy because I don't think Rivers is going to stay in Indy. I don't think they're going to want to re-sign him if they can get somebody younger in there. If Dalton fits those 2 situations. He could fit in Chicago if they move on from Trubisky too.
It's interesting. So I actually have Dalton It really depends on what's going to happen with Alex Smith, but I think Dalton going over to Washington would be a very interesting situation as to where he could be a bridge quarterback for a younger player that needs to develop. And I think it makes sense for both sides. However, I mean, Dalton might resign with the Cowboys and be a backup as well.
You think?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what he was going to do last year. So why wouldn't he do it again after he proved serviceable and after now they have an injured quarterback that's going to be taking the field? It could give Dak a little bit more time to heal if necessary. And if anything else happens to Dak, I don't see why the Cowboys wouldn't, try and keep him in-house.
Yeah, I agree with that. If Dak does move on for some reason, they know they have a serviceable bridge quarterback in Andy Dalton already there for a decent price tag. Number 2 for me, and you mentioned the Bears, is Trubisky. I think he proved serviceable enough to get the job done. Whether or not they keep him there, I'm not convinced they do. He may move on. Where? That could be a dice roll. I mean, the Patriots could be a landing spot for him as well.
Yeah, I had him as my number 3, and I can see him either going to New England or another guy who might go to Indy.
Yeah, for me, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and Mitch Trubisky's actually number 3 for me as well. So that was your number 2, you said, James?
Yeah.
Well, who's number 3 for you, Nate?
Trubisky.
I'm sorry. Wait, did I say? Oh, you had Andy Dalton. My number 2 is Jameis Winston, actually.
Ooh, yeah.
Jameis Winston's somebody that's sitting back there. He's waiting for an opportunity to produce. He's still a young kid. He's like 27. He'll probably be 28 next year. So he's going into his prime essentially for the quarterback position. And this is something that's where Jameis Winston needs an opportunity to produce. Like, he needs that chance. And I was like praying to God that he signed with the Denver Broncos last year, because that would have been the perfect opportunity for him to be able to air it out under Shermer's system. That didn't happen, unfortunately. So obviously, Locke is there now. We got to see what happens with Locke. Locke might be locked in after, I did not mean to do that. No pun intended. He might be locked in for another year, but we have to see what the Denver Broncos do. I don't think that the Broncos and John Elway will be allowed to draft another quarterback. So they might have to go after a veteran. Jameis Winston still makes sense going to that spot.
I like that. He fits that offense.
He really does. He I was hoping he'd go there last year, but he's a perfect fit this upcoming year. So let's go ahead. My number 3 was Mitchell Trubisky, right? So did you say your number 3, Chef?
My number 3 was actually Jameis Winston. So that makes sense right there. And I have a feeling that he stays with the Saints, believe it or not.
Another spot for me was the Steelers.
Especially if the Breeze era ends there, they could keep him there to be a safety net for Taysom Hill at a cheaper price.
I don't know if he's I think he's going to command a decent amount on the market. I'm thinking at least 15 million, maybe 10. Yeah, I don't think the Saints can afford to keep him, to be honest with you.
Well, they've got Taysom Hill.
Yeah, they are Taysom.
Jokingly, but not jokingly, they believe in him for some weird reason. So there you go. Because he didn't look awful.
And with Breeze leaving, I mean, that opens up a lot of money for them.
Yeah, if he even leaves, who knows? Now, number 4, Nate. Who's your number 4?
So my number 4 was this one's maybe a little bit of a hot take, but Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I thought about going that route. I really did. But him being 38 or something, I was like, I can't, man. I can't. He's 38. I don't think he's going to be a starter in the NFL next year, no matter where he goes. Now, there is the unwritten rule where, Ryan Fitzpatrick has to start the first game of the season for every year of his career, whatever the case is. But, it's something as to where I don't know if I can trust a 38-year-old quarterback. And even so, where do you see him going where he's going to be productive?
So, Indy is one place I've thought about. Just because, and it's specifically Fitzpatrick needs a win now situation, obviously, because he's 38 years old. And look what he did with Miami this year.
Yeah, it's very realistic that could happen. Thank you, Bentley. Thank you. So it is very realistic that it could actually happen, with that being the case. But honestly, I see him ending up back in Miami again to continue to work with the Dolphins and Tua. I think he can end up being a coach at some point.
I think he definitely should end up being a coach at some point.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Who's your number 4, Chef? Who's your number 4 quarterback for the free agency of 2021?
Oh, man, it hurts to say it, but it's Cam Newton, man. I don't think he stays with New England. I think he goes somewhere to become maybe a bridge quarterback, perhaps the Jaguars on the cheap to get that bridge before Trevor Lawrence lands there, get Trevor Lawrence up to speed. and I think they utilize him as such. I mean, he may only have a year left, and I think he gets signed on a cheap deal to fill a hole somewhere.
I have Cam Newton as my number 4 too, and I think he ends up back with the Patriots, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't see any reason why they'd move on from him at this point unless Stidham goes off and has an insane game. But I mean, they're getting him for cheap. He'll resign again for a decent price, probably, north of 10, but probably closer to 15. Once again, very similar to Jameis Winston, but that's backup money. So as long as the Patriots can save on that, I don't see why they would move on yet. He could be another bridge.
Yeah, so he was my number 5.
Okay.
Kind of the same deal. I mean, I could see him staying in New England, kind of bridging that gap. I don't know that there's going to be much of a market for him outside of New England unless he wants to go be a backup. But I'm interested to see. I think he still has something left in the tank. I think COVID messed with him more.
I think the lack of receivers messed with him more. I mean, he would have had drop pass after drop pass after drop pass. And bad, was not a bad offensive line, but a subpar offensive line, a system that he does not fit in very well. It's not a great scenario for him, but I don't see why they move on at this point.
Yeah.
So my number 5 was Jacoby Brissett, who could go on to be a bridge quarterback anywhere. He could be a good backup for now. It's something as to where, hell, he could be a backup with the Bengals potentially. He could be a backup with the Washington football team, depending on what happens with Alex Smith. If they don't draft a quarterback, they're going to need somebody to make sure they're there that's a decent backup. And Taylor Heinicke is not going to foot the bill. Neither is Kyle Allen. So, they need a good, solid backup over there. And whether Alex Smith is there or not come 2021, it's something where Jacoby Brissett could be a fit either way, as a bridge quarterback or as a backup. Yeah, who's your number 5, Chef?
My number 5 was actually Kyle Allen. I think he could be a serviceable quarterback and potential a better bridge than, say, Alex Smith. Alex Smith, he's banged up. How much more can he take in the NFL? Yes, he came back, but we already saw that Kyle Allen beat him out for that starting role when Dwayne Haskins fell down the depth chart. And obviously Dwayne Haskins is no longer there. I think Kyle Allen may actually get the start in Washington next season.
Alex Smith was actually not cleared for practices and whatnot, full contact until a little bit later on the season. So when Alex Smith actually, came on the field, that was still, in my opinion, a little bit too early for him. But I think it was the week before that or that week where he became the official backup and he was okay to play. So I think it was a fair competition. I think Alex Smith would have taken that one. Just watching Kyle Allen, man, he doesn't make the right reads. He doesn't have the arm strength needed, and he can't throw that ball on the line like most quarterbacks need in order to do in the NFL. But it makes sense as a starting quarterback. So let's go ahead and move on to the running back position. Oh,
I was just going to say that I think Kyle Allen might be a perfect fit for the Broncos.
Yeah, could be.
Reunion tour. I don't mean that. Please, God.
I think Chad Kelly's the one to go there. No, but sitting there and looking at it, we have the running back situation. And the running back situation looked a lot juicier in the summer of 2020. But we had Mixon sign a contract, Dalvin Cook sign a contract, Alvin Kamara sign a contract. There's still a couple guys out there, though, who are just, sexy fits for multiple different teams. Now, with this running back class coming out, it's not the best running back class. So this could actually offer an opportunity for some of these guys to go out there and command some contracts. But at the same time, NFL teams don't like to pay running backs. So let's start out with Chef. Chef, who's your 101 for the running backs?
My 101 was Aaron Jones. And I think he may jump over to Arizona after Kenyon Drake vacate. Yeah, it's one of them. Vacates the premises over there. And I think they hold on to Chase Edmonds as a complimentary piece, but I think Aaron Jones is smashing that offense.
Yeah, I have Aaron Jones as my 101, and I agree with the landing spot. Nate?
Yeah, no, it's like we have the same brain on this one.
That's why I said we need different sheets. But yeah, no, 101's both consensus. Dak Prescott 101 and Aaron Jones 101. So let's go to the 102, Chef. Who you got?
I have Marlon Mack as my 102. And the same predicament. He can land at the Cardinals, Broncos, or the Bucks, I believe. I think they keep things fluid there and keep moving things around. I don't know if they have the full trust in Ronald Jones. We saw Leonard Fournette is also a free agent, and we'll get to him down the line. But I think Marlon Mack could be a good fit in that Bucks offense.
I'm sitting there looking at it, and Marlon Mack was my number 3, by the way. And I'm sitting there thinking that he could actually be – it's tough for me to actually get 100% on board with this, but like he could fit in Miami really well. It all really depends on what happens with Gaskin and whatnot. But being the first and second down back with his ability to break tackles, evade tackles, and whatnot, it could be a very like awesome 1-2 punch with Gaskin. We got to see what happens. What's up?
Oh, I was just agreeing. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's something that's where like it really depends on the draft and whatnot and what Miami does, because I actually have Miami taking a running back, but I think that Marlon Mack, who's my number 3, would be sexy fit in Miami.
I like that.
Who's your number 2? Who's your number 2, Nate?
Oh, I've got Mike Davis as my number 2. I like what I saw out of him spelling CMC, and I think there's got to be a team out there that can get him cheap that he would fit with. I mean,
I feel like he would just re-sign with Carolina. I don't think any team's willing to pay for him, to be honest.
Yeah, what is he, like 28 years old, Nate?
Yeah.
He didn't really make my list. Yes, he filled in well for CMC, but obviously he is a backup, and we even saw who was his name, Rodney Smith, come in and take some work away from him. He obviously can't hold a full workload.
Yeah,
fair enough.
He's not on my list, but my number 2 is Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake over there, I want to say Tampa at first, but I don't know if Tampa could actually afford him with their contract situation and the free agents they have coming up. So I went ahead and went with Atlanta in this case scenario. Todd Gurley should be a free agent as well. So we're looking at a perfect landing spot for Kenyon Drake where he can be utilized up the middle, as a back that is, good enough to grind the tackles. Meanwhile, he has breakaway speed and he can catch balls. Atlanta's contract situation is difficult to an extent, but I do think that they have some contracts over there that they can move around and make stuff work. So I think that Kenyon Drake is actually the perfect fit for Atlanta, who's probably going to try and make this might be their last hurrah in terms of trying to make a playoff run before they move on from Matt Ryan. I think he's the guy that's going to be there to help them do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't disagree with you there. I have Kenyon Drake as my number 3, Chase. And that just to follow up with that, I think he might actually stay in Arizona, depending on what they think he did this year. That, or he could die and go over to San Francisco and they can run him into the ground.
That's very possible. Very possible. I actually have somebody else on this list who I think is a sexy fit for the 49ers.
Me too. Kenyon Drake was my number 3 as well. My gut says he stays in Arizona. I don't see him going anywhere else.
All right.
He's made strides in that system, and they'd be foolish to move on yet.
Not if they can get Aaron Jones.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously not if they can get it. No, Kenyon Drake over Aaron Jones.
What?
What?
No way.
I don't mean it.
Oh, God, I thought you were
wow.
serious. Freak
God,
out.
no. I'm only serious half the time.
All right, so Chef, who do you have for your number 4?
My number 4 is Salvan Ahmed, and I know he was a restricted free agent, but I don't know whether or not Miami pays him. He came in cheap, rookie, and like you said, they are looking for another running back, probably in the draft early with all that high draft capital. But I think he may stay, or he goes somewhere else, maybe as a backup somewhere, possibly maybe he moves on and goes to the Chargers as a backup, takes that Josh Kelly spot.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, Salvan Ahmed, he's somebody that he didn't have a great combine. I loved his college film, but he didn't have a great combine. And I think that he really I don't think he can carry a long-term full workload until he adds on some weight and whatnot. But that could take away from his speed. So he might be suited best as a backup. And, for that being the reason, if the Miami Dolphins don't add anybody, I'm pretty sure he's going to end up staying there. Now, for my number 4, or Nate, do you want to go for yours first? Did you already?
Mine's Marlon Mack. And you guys said everything I was going to say. So there you go.
All right, that works. I love Marlon Mack, man.
I missed him this year so much, man. Yep. I really did.
So Edwards, right? Gus Edwards is my number 4. He could end up re-signing with the Baltimore Ravens, which is fine. They're still going to split a workload. But he could also end up with the 49ers, who I think would be a very interesting situation as a bigger, more physical back who might be able to actually withstand the beating that Kyle Shanahan likes to give to his running backs or dish out to his running backs. So Gus Edwards, for me, I think is going to be a steal for whoever gets him. I thought the Eagles might be interesting as like a bigger, more physical goal line back, stuff that Miles Sanders can't do as well. I think 49ers are interesting. I think the Gus Edwards is going to go out there and command a, like a Todd Gurley from last year type contract, maybe a Melvin Gordon type contract, but a little bit less, juicy. Something where he's going to be getting $5 million or so a year.
I can get behind that. That sounds good. He didn't make my list, Chase, but he was someone I was looking at. What number are we on? Are we on number 5? Or was that your number 4?
That was number 4.
I just did my number 4. I think you started out with your number 4, Chef, so you should be on number 5, right?
All right, yeah, let's do it. My number 5 is Leonard Fournette. And I don't think he stays with the Bucs. I think they move on from him. And I think he can wind up possibly with the Lions. All right. Adrian Peterson's getting old. Kerryon Johnson did not work out in that system. We all know that. I think Leonard Fournette as a goal line back, as a complementary piece to DeAndre Swift would be a very nice fit for Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I hate that because
it
could take away from DeAndre Swift.
Too, but it's the honest. It
does make sense though. It really matters like who the head coach is going to be, over there for the Lions, what system he likes to run and everything like that. So that's a big question mark, but I guess, it makes sense. Gus Edwards makes sense there too.
Yeah,
correct.
Gus Edwards makes so much sense pretty much on almost every single team. Like the Patriots, he makes sense. Like he's just he's overall just a perfect cheap running back, to be that complementary piece in the goal line back wherever he ends up going. So I'll go ahead and discuss my 5th one. And this one was questionable for me because I had a few guys that I wanted to put in here for the 5th running back for the free agent class of 2021. And I had to go with Philip Lindsay. Not a big fan of Philip Lindsay overall. I don't love Philip Lindsay, but the Jets make an intriguing place as P. Ryan, he's a late round rookie. They might not want to rely on him as much. I don't think Frank Gore is going to be sticking around. So they might need a feasible back. And honestly, looking at it, Lindsay makes sense.
Oh, don't do that to my boy.
Yeah, he's not going to resign with Denver, I don't think. I think it's going to be Devontae Booker. I mean, not Devontae Booker. Devonta Freeman and Melvin Gordon. But how do you guys feel about Philip Lindsay?
My gut tells me he stays in Denver. I mean, he's a hometown kid. He'll probably take a discount to stay here. I mean, he just moved out of his parents' house 6 months ago.
That's actually amazing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just can't say. I don't know. And it's the homer in me saying I can't see him leaving, I guess.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I can agree with you, Nate and Chase, both sides. As far as him staying as a Bronco, yes. He also could be, if he's going to take a discount, he is another candidate that the Lions could go out and grab as a 1-2 punch. Yeah. I really think that, and like you said, Chase, we don't know the specifics on who the coach is going to be and what kind of system they're going to be running there, but they can't rely on Swift if they're going to, they don't want to bury him in the ground. We've seen it this year. He will get a full workload, but I think Lindsay could be a nice complementary piece if he can stay healthy, especially if he's going to be on the cheap.
Right. That's a fair point too.
I'll take it. I can roll with that 100%.
Yeah.
Did you already have your 5th guy, Chef? Are we ready to move on to wide receiver?
Nate needs to drop his 5th.
Oh, that's okay. Nate is. Gotcha.
So my 5th guy is James White. I don't think he stays in New England. I could see him going. There are 2 places I see him landing. Jacksonville as a 3rd down back or San Francisco. I think both of those systems make sense for the type of back he is, the pass catching. And how good would he be with Trevor Lawrence?
Ooh.
I mean, having that veteran back presence to kind of ease Trevor Lawrence into the NFL game, because that team otherwise is so young.
Yeah, I mean, that actually does make a lot of sense with that veteran guidance as well.
Yeah.
I like the 49ers take. That's a good one. But chances are he ends up with the Giants, who, they already have some
recycle running backs from the Patriots.
Exactly. Deion Lewis. Yeah, and now they have the head coach there, right? So it's sitting there
true.
it does make perfect sense for him to go to the Giants to be that pass catching back to try and relieve Saquon Barkley from some of the longer drives. I think that James White, if he does leave New England, which there's a very good chance, I think that he ends up over there with the Giants, to be honest with you.
I can see that. Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and wide receivers.
This is the best part of the whole thing.
Dude,
the wide receivers.
I thought it was going to be running backs. I went into this entire offseason talking about the running backs, and then, we talked about Kamara and Mixon and, and Dalvin Cook getting all re-signed. So I thought it was going to be more of the wide receivers, and Cooper Kupp got re-signed. But outside Cooper Kupp, I don't think there's too many big name wide receivers that got a contract towards, close to the season. So I think Robert Woods got a contract too, but he wasn't a free agent. Either way, this is something as to where you could go so many different directions while trying to rank these wide receivers. So Nate, hit us with your first one.
Well, I think this one's pretty obvious. It's Juju.
Ooh.
I mean, he's the best receiver. I feel like he's the best receiver on the market at this point. And Chase, I think he ends up in Washington.
That's one of the places that I have him. And I do have Juju, but I have him at number 2, possibly number 3. I'm still kind of like, fiddling with the idea of putting him there.
Wow.
And
I'm totally against the consensus on the rankings, and this is going to be fun, guys, because I'm sure we have all the same guys. We just have them in different order.
Somebody brought up the Chargers for Juju the other day, and I was like, no, because he plays the slot. Keenan Allen plays the slot. Like, that doesn't make much sense.
I keep bringing up the Bills for Juju to land in.
Well, they like Cole Beasley over there.
And I know they like Cole Beasley, but they can move some money, get rid of John Brown. They could fit something in there, and they could trade away Cole Beasley. It doesn't mean that he has to stay there. You remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really see it happen as much. I have the Chargers make sense. I didn't like it at first because Keenan Allen and him both play the slot, but with Keenan Allen's contract running up here in a little bit, Juju could make some sense. I don't love that, but it's possible. Green Bay's been brought up, which I don't love either because I think Devontae Parker needs to play some snaps out of the slot. I was sitting there looking at it, and Tennessee could make a very interesting case, because they play a lot of one tight end sets to an extent. They didn't this year as much because of the injuries that occurred to their offensive line.
Right.
But typically they run a lot of one tight end type sets, and having Juju out of the slot, I know they don't pass a lot, but maybe it could make sense. Now it sucks for fantasy for AJ Brown, for Corey Davis, everybody except for Ryan Tannehill at that point, but it makes it interesting. I don't know. That was just something I wanted to throw out there. Somebody also brought up Seattle too, but Tyler Lockett's the slot guy.
Yeah,
there, so.
I don't think Seattle's in the market for any of these guys.
I'll go with my number 1, and I'll pair it with the Juju take. He could also wind up with the Bears if they wind up releasing my number 1, Allen Robinson. And I think Allen Robinson may move on, and I think he moves to Houston. Okay, matches up with Deshaun Watson. They have an alpha. Will Fuller is in contention of. There has been rumors all during the season that before the trade deadline that Will Fuller was going to move on. I think they take a shot at getting Allen Robinson on the Houston Texans this year.
It's actually not a bad spot, bad scenario.
Nope, not at all.
The whole salary cap situation skews me a little bit, but they're not going to have the ability to draft a wide receiver. They're not going to have the luxury to do that. So it'll be interesting. But having that much money tied up in the wide receiver position with Cobb and the money that he got, and then you talk about Cooks and the money that he's owed, it's sketchy. It's sketchy. But Allen Robinson wasn't my number 1 as well, so it makes it interesting. I actually have him sticking with the Bears. I know that he wanted to get away from the Bears. I know he wanted a big contract. I think the Bears actually reward him this offseason and pay it. If not, they always have that franchise tag that they can utilize. So if they don't use it on Mitchell Trubisky, I think it could absolutely go towards Robinson.
Well, Robinson's my number 2. So I was just barely off on that with you guys. I don't think they're going to keep him. I mean, Mooney and Miller are kind of the future there. Why would you pay A-Rob when you've got those two guys? I could see him in San Francisco. He'd be a good fit there, good fit in that offense. And with how much Deebo Samuel's been getting hurt, having some security at the wide receiver position would be huge for them.
Well, especially for their top guy too. This is somebody that has always had an alpha with Kyle Shanahan. He's had Pierre Garçon, which was his alpha. He's always had alpha receivers almost his entire coaching career. So sitting there and looking at him not having an alpha receiver, it's a little bit mysterious. So I think that's actually not a bad landing spot, but I know that the 49ers are strapped up against cap. They can cut Jarrett McKinnon and whatnot and move on, but that's a tough one for me.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and hop over to your number 3. Let's see if we all have the same one.
Well, my number 2 I'll start with
Oh,
my number two.
Sorry. I
That's
thought you
all
already
right.
named number two. It's tough for me to keep up with all these numbers.
My number two is Chris Godwin. And I know he probably stays with the Bucks, but I think possible Green Bay would be a great, great fit for Chris Godwin. They need a number 2 wide receiver there. And I don't know if the Bucks keep him, man. If I don't know how things are going to roll with Brady there or whatnot, with Arians, how they're going to keep their personnel. But if they decide to let him go, they'll probably tag him. But if they decide to let him go, Green Bay is an awesome landing spot, especially for fantasy.
So Godwin's my number 3. I'm right there behind you. Sitting there and looking at it, I think that Godwin is an excellent fit with multiple different teams. But what about Godwin in Detroit?
Ooh, I don't hate that.
Godwin in Detroit makes sense, and it's going to go along with somebody that we're going to talk about here in a second.
Right.
But what if they end up trying to get a younger, quarterback, right? They might draft one, maybe not super high, but, with their first overall pick. What if they try and get one of these studs to put behind Stafford, and they need to put a receiving corps around him, some pass catchers who can make some plays, and give them an opportunity to kind of open up the field. Meanwhile, you have a running game that's being developed. They've been drafting a bunch of offensive linemen, and they can end up going back and doing it again next year. So this is something that's where they need to be a dynamic offense. I know that they've been hiring a lot of these defensive guys over the past few years, but I think that they need to get more offensive heavy, and I think they realize that. So this is something as to where I think that Godwin makes a lot of sense going to the Detroit Lions.
Nate, what was your number 2, bud?
So I already told you guys my number 2.
Yeah, he's on his number 3.
My bad.
All right. So am I going with my number 3?
Yep.
Sure.
Corey Davis.
God, he's your number 3?
It's my number 3. I know. I probably should have swapped him and Godwin, honestly, but I love Corey Davis, and I think he's not going to stay in Tennessee. Not when you've got Brown, and if they're going to go after Juju, which could be crazy if they did, but I could see him in New England. I think he would fit really well in that New England offense, and their wide receiver starved at this point.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they swallow their pride and sign him after having N'Keal Harry, who plays that same position. Like the jump ball specialist, like the possession guy. It'll be very interesting to see if they're actually able to do that. Yeah. But they need help. They do need help.
They need help bad.
I just don't know if Corey Davis is going to be enough to be a number 1 receiver no matter where he goes,
Yeah, I agree with that, Chase. I think he ate more of the fact that A.J. Brown took away a lot of the coverage, and he wound up finally getting used to that play-action system in year 2 with Ryan Tannehill. I think if he goes somewhere where he does have double coverage as the number 1 wide receiver on a team, he could wind up going down in production, especially in fantasy.
I think it makes a lot of sense for Washington too. They got Terry McLaurin on one side. They don't have anybody else. They've got Cam Sims and
that would
Antonio
be an
Gannett.
awesome landing spot for Corey Davis.
Yeah. So I mean, Washington needs wide receivers. They need a slot guy and they need an outside guy. And sitting there and looking at it, Washington would love to sign a guy like Chris Godwin, but Chris Godwin's probably going to demand close to 18 million or so, maybe even 20 million a year. Yeah. So I don't think that Washington's going to be willing to pay that. They never really have paid skill position players with Ron Rivera being there. So that's interesting for me with Chris Godwin, but I like Corey Davis, who probably might not command more than 10 or 12 a year. Right. He'll probably be south of 10, to be honest with you.
He's probably one of those wide receivers that will get picked up at the beginning of the offseason due to his lower price tag.
Yeah. He could sign a contract right off the bat, as soon as the tampering period's done or whatever they call it. So Corey Davis, for me, he can't be that high up just because I think there's too many studs on this list, but I don't hate it. He was actually going to be, he's like my honorable mention. But my number 4 guy, or wait, did you already give your number 3, Chef?
No, I did not. And
all right,
my number 3 was Kenny Golladay. And I think he re-signs with the Lions, believe it or not. Or we talked about other receivers. I think he may be the guy that goes to the Patriots.
Ooh, that would make a lot of sense. That would make a
They need a number 1 there, man. And if they're going to build and start over again from the ground up with the new quarterback and a new system, not necessarily a new system, but a new quarterback anyway, I think they need a standout elite alpha wide receiver, and Kenny Golladay fits that mold.
He does. And like I said, with Corey Davis, I don't know if they'd be able to swallow their pride for Corey Davis, but they could definitely swallow their pride for Kenny Golladay,
Yeah.
So Yeah, I love that take. I think that Corey Davis, he's actually my number 4, and I do think he resigns with the Lions. That's where I have him going 100%. I don't know where else he could end up. Not only where his situation would be actually better, but where he would want to go. So I think he ends up back with the Lions. The interesting part is going to be where the Lions want to pay, a semi-injury prone quarterback or wide receiver to an extent who didn't even get a contract before the season started. So I didn't even hear talks about a contract for Corey or for Kenny Galladay.
They spent their money backing it up with Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, that's a little strange.
Yep.
All right, well, that's my number 4 is Kenny Galladay. Who you got, Nate?
I had Chris Godwin. We already kind of touched on him.
Well, let's go ahead and hop over to Chef then. Chef, who's your number 4?
My number 4 was Juju. And, we already talked about him as well.
So I guess we're about to find out all different 5s, right? Does anybody have a 5 that has actually been talked about yet?
No.
I mentioned him a little bit, and it's Will Fuller for me.
Yep, that's my number 5 too.
And I don't know if he re-signs with Houston or they take another shot at Green Bay. I think Green Bay is the smash hit there. He may come in under a little bit lower price tag due to his suspension. I think he has to deal with that a little bit in his negotiations this year. He won't be able to play game 1, but he should be a viable number 2 quarterback opposite Devontae Adams.
That's 100% where I have him going as well. I think it's almost guaranteed to happen to an extent. I mean, there's some other suitors that could come into effect. The Patriots make sense because Demir Burr just is not doing it for him. Meanwhile, Will Fuller can play that deep, stretch role. But yeah, I mean that's the main spot for me, 100%. Miami makes a little bit of sense too.
You guys are gonna roast the hell out of me for this one.
Oh God,
no.
Here we go.
T.Y. Hilton.
Man, he's so old.
Wait, what? You have him still in the league next year?
I do. Yeah, I think he's still in the league. I think
isn't he like 45 years old already?
Man, he's like 30.
He's 34. I think
34.
No, he's like 32.
Yeah, he's like 32. Yeah, somewhere like 31, 32. He's just one of those guys I think that will probably have a longer career. I think he'll play till he's 38, 39 like Larry Fitzgerald. And I think for the next 2 or 3 seasons, he's a guy you can buy somewhat cheap that can be effective. I have no idea where he fits, but I think wherever he ends up, he's going to be good next year.
Man, he can't even stay healthy for a season. No, I think he stayed healthy this season, to be honest.
Yeah, he stayed healthy all year this year. It was just a matter of
he missed 1 game this year.
Yeah, so sitting there and looking at it, T.Y. Hilton's going to be interesting. I think that New England's actually a great spot for T.Y. Hilton to go and be that field stretcher that we talked about, and how they like their veterans over there. They like a certain style play. But keep in mind, I mean, Indianapolis Colts have a ton of salary cap space from what I remember. I don't have it in front of me, but Indianapolis can afford to pay him, at least give him one of those state contracts like Amari Cooper got, where it's like 4 years, but it's really only actually 2 years, Right. So I think that's probably more likely than what's to happen than him actually. Leave.
Yeah, it all depends if he's willing to take a pay cut to go to another team and stay in the league. I think is what depends on his landing spot.
Yeah, I'll take that. All right, so let's go ahead and go on to the last position we have. Let's go ahead and go into the tight end position. Chef, who you got?
I'll kick it off, man. It's Robert Tonyan. And I know he's a restricted free agent. Yeah, he's my number 1 tight end, man. I think he showed enough this year, and I think he stays in Green Bay. Jay Sternberger was a project that doesn't really seem to be working out in Green Bay's favor. I think Tonyan stays there for years to come. I think they pay him a little bit of money, and he is the number 1 tight end for Green Bay.
Yep, I have. Oh, I was wondering what that noise was. It's freaking Spot Track in the background, messing with my playing some videos. Let me know.
Pop-ups.
Yeah. So sitting there and looking at it, Tonyan, he's going to end up back in Green Bay. There's no doubt in my mind, 100%. He is going to end up back in Green Bay, but I can't put him any higher than 3rd. He's, I think, 3rd for me, if I remember correctly, and that was even close for me to put him there. So, Nate, where do you stand on Tonyan?
I've got him at 4.
Yeah,
I think he stays in Green Bay, no question.
Yeah,
and there's no way they let him go.
Yeah, he's been a developmental prospect. So, he's starting to break out now at an older age, very similar to like Darren Waller type stuff, where he was wide receiver, a little bit too big. So he had to learn how to be a tight end. Waller had some other issues, but Tanyan's going to be good. He's going to be very, very good.
Kittle in the offseason. He's definitely staying.
They lived together. They lived together.
Yeah, come on, man. You don't think that him and Kittle get better going into 2021?
Oh, yes.
In the offseason? I totally believe it.
I like him. I have him at 3, like I said, but I don't think he's the top one. I think Jonnu's number 1. Jonnu Smith is by far and away from me 101. Like, it's not even relatively close. He's going to end up back in Tennessee. They should give him a contract. If not, maybe he ends up over with Indianapolis Colts. Like, we could see Washington make a play for him. We could see, there's an endless amount of teams that would be on the market for Jonnu Smith, like list of teams.
Right.
But there's no way.
I had Jonnu at number 3 for me. And I think he might wind up with the Rams. I think he's a perfect fit if they decide to let Gerald Everett go. He fits that system. They run a 12 system night and day over there. And he could be a great complementary piece to Tyler Higbee on the other side. And he could really do some work in that offense. And with him missing time this year, it kind of lowers his contract negotiations. And Tennessee, they showed well with Ferkser with him not in there. So I don't know if they hold on to him, Chase. And that's one we're going to have to keep an eye on going into next season.
I can't disagree with that one. It's a good spot, good landing spot. So who's your number 1, Nate?
I got Hunter Henry.
Yep. He's my number 2.
I don't think he leaves the Chargers, though.
I do.
You do?
I do. I have him pretty much locked in to go anywhere else. Like, Cincinnati makes a lot of sense.
That does make sense.
Once again, we talked about Washington, New England, both needing tight ends. Those are 2 good spots for him. If Miami feels like they want some insurance policies for Mike Gesicki, or they want to move Mike Gesicki to the wide receiver position potentially, and play more in the slot, that makes sense. But Hunter Henry can't stay healthy, and honestly, I can feel like he's kind of run his course with the Chargers to an extent. I think he's still good, but he just hasn't been what he was expected to be with the Chargers, and I think he's going to try and command that money. And I don't think the Chargers, they don't really go out of their way to pay guys.
True.
Austin Eckler got a decent contract, but he's getting like $6 million a year to be a starting running back who's one of the best in the league. So, they're not going to go out of their way to pay anybody outside of maybe some cornerbacks, some offensive linemen, and of course Justin Herbert when the time comes. But they don't like to pay people, so it's something as to where I don't see any situation where Hunter Henry does end up back for the Chargers.
That's a shame. He was my number 2, Nate, and I agree with you. I think they try to do something where they keep him, but now that I'm looking at the price tag of $10.6 million, that's a high fee to pay.
Yeah, it's absolutely absolutely ridiculous. It's something as to where I just can't see it happening.
I just don't necessarily like the Cincinnati take, Chase. They have CJ Uzama, who will be coming back next year, who had a great relationship with the young rookie quarterback Joe Burrow, and they had Drew Sample fill in backup as well. So I think Cincinnati might be set with Uzama, who knows the system already. I don't know if they bring in another veteran to cover that.
I'm trying to pull up his stuff. I don't think that Uzama has actually played like a full season in the NFL yet. Like, I think that he's injured every single year. So he's been in the NFL now for, come on, computer, you can do it.
5 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years so far. Oh man, longer than that. This is his 6th year in the NFL.
Right.
He's played a full season twice, but he only had 43 receptions and 27 receptions. So that was primarily a backup role. And that was last year, the year before that. But 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, they had Tyler Eifert there for the longest time, and this was supposed to be his year. This was supposed to be his year to break out, and he started off the season great with Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, he got injured, and they had Drew Sample fill in that game. I think he commanded 12 targets, and Sample got 11 or something like that. It was a crazy game, but that's where Joe Burrow threw the ball for like 60 times.
Yeah,
he commanded 12 of those targets. So I think Uzama stays there, and on the cheap too. Like, they don't really. He's already under contract. I don't think they go out and spend money just yet on the tight end position.
Yeah, I just think they need a veteran there, and like I said, Uzama cannot stay healthy. So how much do they want to? How many eggs do they want to put in that basket? You know, like get
It's
a
all
veteran there,
speculation,
help with the line. You know, oh yeah, 100%. All right, so let's go ahead and jump over to. Did anybody give out their number 2 yet?
No.
That was my number 2, Hunter Henry. We had talked about him.
All right,
my number 2 is Jonnu.
Okay, we already covered Johnny for the most part.
Yeah, we already covered Jonnu. He was my number 3. Who's your number 2, Chase?
Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry.
Yep, and then I have Tanyan as my 3, which we have already discussed with Tanyan.
Yep.
So did anybody have a different 3?
No, I had Jonnu for 3.
All right, so 1, 2, and 3 were pretty much like all on board, just in different orders for each one of us.
Yep.
So Hollister is my number 4.
Ooh.
I love Jacob Hollister, man. The kid's like, 27? He'll be 28 or so. He's shown an ability to break out, but the Seahawks have like 10 different tight ends. Now, I do think that Hollister will end up staying with the Seahawks. I think they're going to re-sign him. They like the kid. Greg Olsen should be moving on to a broadcast booth. Will Disley can't stay healthy. Like, I think Hollister is going to be the guy there. And Russell Wilson and Hollister have this connection. So I do like Hollister, but I do think that he ends up back in Seattle.
I don't dislike that at all. I think you're right about him staying in Seattle. Hollister has been good there, and he has shined a little bit when he had the opportunity. He's dealt with some injury as well, him and Disley, and I think that's why they brought in a third with the veteran Greg Olsen. But like you said, he will be definitely moving on to the broadcast booth.
Yep, and then Parkinson's going to be waiting in the wings, so it'll give us another couple years before we start to see a little more Parkinson. So, who do you guys have as number 4?
Well, my number 4 was Gronk. I think, and it's either he leaves the league again, or if Tom Brady stays at Tampa, Gronk stays with Tampa for another year. And why not? I mean, he's playing good ball. He's finally got his feet back. He's looking good. He's looking stronger than he was in the offseason, that's for sure. And I think he finally got a hand on that Arian system, and he's a great fit there, and I think he stays there for another year.
Yep, I can't disagree with that, but I left him off my list specifically because of what you said. Like, he's either going to retire again or he's going to be on the Bucs. So, I don't really consider him an actual free agent because I don't see any way that he's actually going to be a free agent.
Right on.
Fair. Yeah, I had him at number 5. My number 4 was Jared Cook.
Ooh,
I mean, he looked like crap this year, but I think in a different system, he's moving on. They've got Adam Troutman. They're not going to pay him.
No,
he goes. Yeah. I can see him in New England. I can see Cook being successful in New England.
Yeah, one of those old vets. I could see that to an extent.
Right on.
I don't really see anywhere where Jared Cook is like, damn man, I gotta own him. Maybe like Indianapolis.
I don't hate that.
But that's the extent of it. Like, I can't think of anywhere else where I'm like, dude, that's a great fit for Jared Cook.
Right.
Maybe go down there with Trevor Lawrence for the Jags.
That wouldn't be bad. I mean, they need a tight end.
Yeah, and depending on if they keep Gruden on, that coaching staff, Gruden likes to use his tight ends. Right. We saw what he does with Jordan Reed. So, that makes sense. I mean, O'Shaughnessy's had a decent year for being probably, somebody that should not even be recognized as a tight end to an extent. So, I don't know, man. That's interesting for me.
You're reading into my fifth person take there, man, when you're mentioning the Jags.
Who was it? O'Shaughnessy? Or
no, it's Trey Burton.
Oh, gotcha.
I think my fifth guy is Trey Burton. I think he proved enough with the Colts, but I think they like Mo Alley Cox, and for some reason they're tied to Jack Doyle a little bit. So I think Trey Burton moves on to his 4th team. Was he on Chicago, Philly, and the Colts? Now, yeah, they move on to the Jags. They won't pay him. O'Shaughnessy, he did okay, but I don't think he stays there as the number 1. I think Trey Burton does enough to fit into that scheme where giving Trevor Lawrence a nice, comfortable safety net at the tight end position.
Yeah, I don't know how much Gruden actually uses move tight ends, though, because he likes his 3 wide sets, and Burton's not big enough to play like an inline tight end. So it makes sense. I get it from like the passing side of things, but I don't know if it's a scheme fit. That's something I want to look into because it would be a sexy fit. It might be something that's like, man, I got to go out and I got to go get Burton. But
for fantasy purposes, if he lands there, that's a grab.
Yeah, that's interesting. So for me, I'm looking at Gerald Everett. at this point. Like we said, Everett could walk, and Everett's, in my opinion, the better tight end over there for the Rams when it comes to skill-wise. So I think that Everett could fit in multiple different places, endless amount of places, very similar to a lot of these guys. He can play inline tight end. He can play move tight end. Once again, we talked about the Colts. They make sense if they move on from Burton. Mo Alley Cox is a free agent as well. I think that Everett could be a fit in just about any location that needs a tight end this year. Washington football team makes sense. Packers, if they don't have Robert Tonyan. How are you guys feeling?
I don't hate it. I just think that, he's injury prone. So wherever he lands, he's going to be discounted a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, who's your number 5?
My 5 was Burton.
For Nate.
Oh, my 5 was Gronk.
Oh, you said that. Yep. Wait, did we talk about your 4?
Yeah, Jared Cook.
Okay, that's right. I just want to keep up, make sure I'm on the same page. My bad. Sorry, guys. It was a long night last night. We stayed up talking fantasy for hours. It's pretty crazy. Like 5-hour long show type thing. But no. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to end it for us. You want to let everybody know where to find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at JanateJack2017, also at IBT_media, inbetweenmedia.com, with the Fantasy Intervention crew. Oh, sure. I could use the cash.
Absolutely.
All right, Chef, where can we find you?
You can find me at FF_Chef on Twitter. Also at The Tilt Is Real on Twitter, thetiltisreal.com. And find some of my articles on Ball Blast Football along with Fantasy Intervention. We're doing the 6-pack tomorrow.
You guys can go check out our content over there at Fantasy Intervention. You guys can find me at FF_Intervention. Go check out our Facebook group, Fantasy Football Discussion. And, of course, make sure you guys go check out our group on Twitter. Join our circle_. We appreciate you guys for coming in here and tuning in today. Thank you guys for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.
Peace.